Prem playoff semi-finals are done. And we ended up with two epic, dramatic tussles. But along with the absolute quality rugby that we saw, we also had a lot of emotion kicking about because there were lots of stalwarts of the clubs that were leaving at the end of this season. So, yeah, made for some great games, made for some great drama. So let's take a look at those matches. Starting with Friday night at Franklin's Gardens, where we had first versus fourth. So, Northampton Saints playing Saracens, who were also last year's champions, going into a real cauldron of an atmosphere down at Franklin's Gardens. The Saints fans were definitely up for this one. And the pitch was looking beautiful. And the teams did not fail to deliver a real quality game. Saints had already beaten Saracens twice this season, home and away. And going into this game, they played the nicest rugby, I think, of any team in the Prem this season as well. So for me, Saints were kind of red-hot favourites, albeit playing Saracens, is never an easy thing to do. Saints were fully loaded. They had the luxury of leaving club captain Ludlam, or also a departing Ludlam, on the replacements bench. They went with Pearson at number 7. Slightly different situation for Saracens. They were fully loaded in the forwards, had lots of quality on the bench with the likes of Theo Dan, Theo McFarlane, Tom Willis. So real quality there. But in the backs, they were a little bit thin. They'd already lost, I think, combination of Shegan, Maitland and Goo to season-long injuries. So they were looking a bit thin at the back, and that wasn't helped by the fact that Farrell went into that game with I would say a niggle, but more than a niggle. It was really touch and go as to whether he'd play. I think Saracens were wanting just to get through the warm-up that day to see if he could make it. And as a consequence of his niggle stroke injury, he handed kicking duties off to Elliot Daly. And then Saracens were further hampered later by Tom Parton going off after about 10 minutes and having to have a little reshuffle, Sinti moving to wing. And then Lazowski came back for his first game time in about 6 months, kind of coming back from a long-term injury. However, despite all that, Saracens started brightly. They got off to a 6-point lead. And at that point, you could really sense the frustrations in with the local crowd. The Saints fans starting to get a bit nervous, a bit frustrated that their team weren't really making things happen. However, that didn't last long. And after about 15, 20 minutes of that first half, Odendahl went through for a really nice, what I'd call almost a vintage Saints try. He just cut through the midfield, it opened up, and he went under the sticks. And all of a sudden, Saints were in that 7-6 lead. And there was much relief, I think, amongst the local fans there, started to get behind their team and started to get excited. Sarries nearly got back into it immediately. There was a nicely worked combo down the right-hand side, a little grubber kick through, bit of a dodgy pass off to George, but he managed to pick up a low pass down by his knee and went over for what Saracens thought was a try to get them back into the game, ruled off for offside. And then we moved into a bit of a period where Saints really started to squeeze Saracens, and they were sort of really out-Saracensing Saracens. They were very dominant in the scrum. I think they pretty much won every scrum contest. They were winning penalties off the back of those scrums, and they were kicking the 3 points. And Finn Russell kicked well that day, and he started to move them into a bit of a dominant lead. Also, you have to say, Saints work in the air. So their kicks to compete, just brilliant. They were winning balls in the air that they probably shouldn't. And that was just giving them a nice sort of bit of momentum, a nice bit of just possession. And they sort of dominated that rest of that first half. And they went in at half time with a deserved 10-point lead. Second half came about. Sarries came out, looked quite determined, looked like they wanted to put their best foot forward, and it was certainly a much better performance than they'd served up against Sale in round 18, and they started to push their way back into the game. Again, second half, Saints still dominated from a set-piece point of view, which made it hard for Saracens to get any real momentum. But they did score a nicely worked try. I think it was another grubber kick, went through to put Lewington over in the corner. But Saracens were always sort of chasing Saints, really. But then with 2 minutes to go, Saracens struck again, this time through Sinti, who was the sort of person who'd moved from midfield to wing earlier in the match. And all of a sudden, after a nice Farrell conversion, there was a 2-point game. 2 minutes to go, but a 2-point game. And you could, feel there was a real nervousness around the ground that, I think the Saints fans were thinking, we've done really well this season. We really don't want to be losing this one in the last minute to our rival Saracens, but they didn't. I have to say their forward pack handled the restart really well, and they quickly squeezed Saracens out. And, it led to a deserved 22-20 win for Saints on the evening. They were the better side. They did deserve it. And I think overall this season, just based on the quality of the rugby they've played, they deserve to be in that final. So whilst Franklin Gardens was celebrating wildly, and so they should, I think this is going to be their first final in about 10 years. Different story for Saracens, a lot of emotion, a lot of big players leaving at the end of this season. That's now Faz gone. That is the 3 Vinipolas gone. Also Maitland and Lewington are retiring. So it's going to be a very different looking team for Saracens next year. And it felt a little bit like a real changing of the guard for Saracens. That was last year's team, or the last decade's team, and it's going to be different next year. But congratulations to Saints. They really deserve to get through. And I'd love to know what you think. Do you think having won that semi-final, that will see Saints home now, and really they should be winning this Prem title? Love to know what you think. Please do let me know in the comments. And whilst you're there, if you want to support me, if you want to support Club Rugby, please do give this a like and subscribe. Helps get the information out to more people. But yeah, so Saturday's game was down in the sunshine at the Rec. We had second playing third, so that was Bath versus Sale. Interestingly, Sale had won more games than Bath, but because Bath had been so prolific with the bonus points, they ended up getting the home semi-final. And probably if we went back a month, it didn't look like Sale had any chance of getting in the playoffs, or very small chance. And they'd won 5 games back to back to get there. But going into that match, I have to say I didn't really give them much hope. They've struggled to come by points this season. They'd struggled to come by tries. And I thought they would just be overpowered by Bath, particularly a Bath team that had that what I think is the best halfback pairing in the Prem, of Ben Spencer and Finn Russell. I think they make such a beautiful combination together. So I thought that was going to be really powerful. And then from a Sale point of view, obviously missing Tuilagi. He went off injured in round 18. Although they had Sam James in, who I think is a pretty decent replacement. And they were also buoyed by the fact that they had Tom Curry back for his first Sale appearance this season, albeit he was a replacement on the bench. But he's such a big figure there. I think that was a real motivator from a Sale point of view. However, once the game kicked off, the noise of the home crowd, was incredible. You got a real sense of the energy and the urge and the desire for those Bath supporters to see their team home. And, I'll say Bath cruised into the lead. It probably wasn't the cruise. However, they established a really nice lead, 18 points to 3, and things looked very comfortable. And then I think it was about 5 or so minutes before half time, Sale struck back with a try. I think it was from Tommy Taylor from a nice line out drive. And then they got another penalty. And all of a sudden, having had that big lead, Bath only went in with a 3-point lead at half time. I think it was 18-15 at half time. And, I got a real sense of that northern grit that you always hear Alex Sanderson talking about, and that cohesion between a group of players really starting to take hold for Sale. And it's worth saying, Sale last year, I thought probably were the form team in the Prem, although they lost the final. They play some really nice rugby. And then after half time, they really, really galvanised themselves. And it wasn't too long after half time when they struck again with another try, this time from O'Flaherty. It was a nice bit of work. The ball got kicked through. He won the foot race, dotted it down, and all of a sudden, Sale were in the lead. and you could really sense like the dip in the energy in the crowd at the Rec. You know, a little bit of a shock factor. And I was then beginning to think, wow, are Sale actually going to do this? Because I really didn't give them a hope before the start of the game. Um, Finn Russell pragmatically kicked a penalty, gave Bath a 1-point lead. I think at that point it was 24-23. A few minutes later, you could sense, you know, that he was seeing the importance of making the scoreboard tick over, because he went for an audacious drop goal, which he missed. But you know, you could see in his mindset, he's thinking, I just need to get points on the board here. And it was really tense. It was a really great match to watch. But then with about 6 minutes to go, line out drive from Bath, beautifully worked. Neil Anna, who'd come on at hooker for Tom Dunn, he went over and gave them that 8-point cushion. And to be honest, it was really game done then. 31-23 to Bath. Hugh, massive celebrations. I mean, I have to say, I saw that game on the telly. I wasn't there live, but the fans looked delirious. They kind of brought great energy there. And I'm thinking, you know, at that point, Bath must be so pleased that it made that investment in Finn Russell. I think, was it £1 million a season? They say they're paying for him, but you can see that starting to pay dividends. You know, bringing him back from Racing at the start of this season. So again, deserved win for Bath. I think based on just how nicely they've played this season, you know, they're deserved to be in the final. I haven't always seen them put together 80-minute games, although that has got better in the last couple of weeks. And again, similar to Saracens, from a Sale point of view, they're losing some real stalwarts from the club. Sam James is obviously moving on. Tuilagi is going off to France. So emotional scenes there. And you know, from a Sale point of view, they must be kicking themselves a little bit that they just couldn't get their season going a little bit earlier, and could have seen themselves in a home semi rather than scraping through to an away semi. But I think overall we had two fantastic games, really competitive games, dramatic games as well. All four sides really contributed. But I think the two teams that have got through deserve it. So very much congratulations to Northampton. Congratulations to Bath as well. Commiserations to Saracens and Sales. Obviously, last year's finalists, both ducking out at the semi-final stage this season. And that kind of momentum that home teams seem to get in the semi-finals of the playoffs just continues. You know, I think the last team to get through from a semi-final was Harlequins in 2021. So the importance of that home semi-final is so critical. But we have got a beautiful final set up. And I think probably most of the neutrals got the final they wanted. I think, yeah, a lot of the comments I've seen on other people's channels and, you know, conversations I've had with people, they wanted a final between Saints and Bath. And I think it's going to be a classic. I think it's going to be a great game. You know, I think they're going to light up that Twickenham pitch next week on June the 8th on Saturday. I cannot wait. It's going to be a great game. And I'd, again, love to know what you think. Who do you think is going to win this one? You know, are Saints going to come through having been the best team probably for most of the season? Or have Bath just made things happen at the right time? And all those signings that they've made and brought into the club this season, do you think that's going to get them over the line? Please do let me know what you think. And why not like and subscribe while you're there? Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.